Hi, I'm Laura Bithell, editor of Raconteur's Scale Up Junction Hub. Today, we're looking at the realities of securing investment to fuel business growth, from choosing the right funding route to navigating investor conversations. To unpack this, I'm joined by someone with first-hand experience of that journey. Thomas Robson-Kanu, former professional footballer and founder of the Turmeric Company. Thanks so much for being here, Thomas.
Absolute pleasure.
So you've built a really successful business out of something that was quite personal to you. What was happening in your life when the idea for the Turmeric Company came along?
Yeah, so I was a 15-year-old and I suffered a major injury which required reconstruction of my knee. It meant I had to go through a number of surgeries and had to then go through 12 months of rehabilitation. I began playing and training again, and in my first competitive match back, now as a 16-year-old, I experienced the same injury again. And so it was at that point in time where my father and I began researching natural remedies to reduce pain, inflammation and swelling. Things like whole watermelons, things like pineapple, pomegranate, ginger root and subsequently turmeric root. And so, my father began sourcing all of these raw ingredients, turned them into a blend. And I began consuming this blend religiously. And from that point on, I was able to begin to play and train again. Eventually made my first team debut, eventually broke into the international team for Wales, and then eventually made my Premier League debut when we got promoted to the Premier League, and I was able to do all of that completely pain-free.
So what was the moment you realised that it wasn't just a personal solution for you and the beginning of a business?
Yeah, I think during my professional football career, we would give the blend to friends and family. We began realising that it wasn't just elite athletes that this blend benefited. And so we decided to launch this range to market in 2016. But it took us 2.5 years to ultimately bring the blend to market. And the reason why was that we very quickly realised if we wanted to launch that same original blend that we had been using as a homemade recipe, we'd have to effectively set up a manufacturing business before launching the brand. And so 2.5 years of research, understanding manufacturing at scale, we eventually set up a bespoke manufacturing unit, effectively the size of a few sheds. And we were ready to then launch in 2018, and we launched the Turmeric Co. direct to consumer on a subscription model. And within 4 weeks of selling our first product, we received our first customer testimonial. And so, I'd probably say at that point in time, we realized that, this was definitely something that had the potential to grow.
When was the point where you thought we need to kind of bring in external investment and really grow this?
When we launched in 2018, we scaled the business relatively quickly. From 2018 to 2020, we went from producing 0 shots a week to over 10,000 shots a week. And we hit capacity at our manufacturing site. Personally, as a family, we were funding that initial stage of the business growth. And so once we had successfully commissioned a new site, it was now around growth. And we realized that in order to really begin to get cut through as a brand, in order to reach new audiences and really communicate the potential benefits that our range has offered, we would need a level of external investment to really begin to build teams within the business who had that existing expertise, whether it was in marketing, whether it was in sales, or whether it was in manufacturing. And so that was the first step of really saying, okay, we want to begin to scale what it is that we've done to date. And in order to do that, we're going to need external funding to facilitate it.
Were there any, misconceptions you had about fundraising when you were doing it? And has that changed as you've gone through the process of rounds of fundraising?
The first early misconception is talking to investors as if they are customers or consumers. I think when you're growing a business or brand, whether it be product or service based, you're so used to tailoring your communications to customers and consumers because you're having to sell, right? You're trying to scale the business. And what that means is that a lot of your messaging and communications and your decks are tailored towards speaking to a customer. Whereas when you're talking to an investor, you have to tailor the communications to what the investor is looking for. And that is really about understanding your customer, so actually that should always be front, face and center. What is the market proposition? What is the market size, the opportunity? Like really showing a good understanding of that is really important. And then, it's about the fundamentals of the business, the value price proposition, the value chain of every single product, the channel potential, the velocity of your sale, the retention of your customers. Like all of these metrics are really, really important metrics, and actually are metrics that you should be tracking as a business and entrepreneur anyway. And so if you are repackaging that in a way to communicate specifically to investors is really how you begin to win.
Looking back, was there one decision around funding that you made that was particularly pivotal to the business?
Yeah, I think that initial investment that we took was from strategic private investors, and I think that was fundamental. And we had venture capital at the table. We were being looked at by various different private equity, but yeah, I think that decision was pivotal because it meant that we could maintain our core values and our vision for what we were trying to create.
My final question is really, what's next for the turmeric company? How are you thinking about growth in the next 12 to 18 months?
We've just completed a process ourselves where we have partners in the business now. We have a blue chip PLC business in AG Bar who have taken a stake in our business. And yeah, the vision now is very aligned to what the vision was before. It's how can we reach as many people as possible. We've received over 15,000 customer testimonials to date. Our vision is to, have received millions upon millions of, testimonials and really had a positive dent on society. And, the way that we do that is become the best in every single function, in every single area to ultimately make sure that we deliver a product which is high quality.
Amazing. Well, sounds like some really exciting plans. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.